The other thing you're probably sitting here thinking is, well, I don't know what you're telling me to track activities. I don't know what activities to do. And here's the thing, John, you know this as well as I do. Some things work for some people and they don't for others. What we want to help you do is find out what activities work that's in your wheelhouse. Okay, so like, let me give you an example. I'm not a cold call guy.
You're not going to call 30 agents you don't know on Monday?
Never, ever.
Okay.
Right?
Maybe a handwritten note guy?
I would do that.
Okay.
Right, but you're giving, this is perfect. Right? There are some things that some people feel comfortable with and is in their wheelhouse, meaning that I'm going to succeed at this at a high level because it feels comfortable to me. And there are some things that aren't, and that's okay. Right? There's more than one way to skin a cat. All right, welcome to another episode of the Contacts to Contracts podcast. I am Bryan Lovell, here with Mr.
Married
John
to
Jones,
Mortgage.
Senior John Jones.
What's up, man?
What's up, dude?
How you doing?
I'm amazing.
All right.
I'm amazing. So what you got for us today, Johnny?
I figure, like, we're into 2022, right? And
chugging along.
We're through one quarter.
Dude, can you believe it?
I mean, it's nuts, right? I mean, it's just like flying by, right? So we talk a lot about on our podcast about business planning, and how often you should do it. And typically, like most of us in life, right, we don't do one.
Nope.
And if we do one, right, we do it, at the beginning of the year, put it in a drawer, and we never pull it back out and look at it to measure how we're doing.
Yep.
So in our industry, we feel that, since COVID, I mean, I think a year feels like every 3 months. So what I'm asking now is, I think it's time, if you're a loan originator and or real estate agent, to pull that plan, if you put one together in January, out and measure where you're at today after quarter one, and see if you're hitting your goals, you're on track to hit your goals for 2022.
So can I share with you what I believe people will find when they do that?
Sure, please.
Okay. So like you said, here we are. We're heading into April of 2022. The mortgage industry in first quarter 2021 had an amazing first quarter.
Best in our history.
Okay, probably the best in our history.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So if you're looking at your numbers right now and you're comparing them year over year to last year, you're probably very disappointed.
Right.
Right? And what John and I want to do right now is we want to encourage you, okay? Because I believe we have plenty of time in Q2, Q3, and Q4 to make up some ground.
Yep.
Right? And the reality is like I look at numbers for our company, and so I say that to say, like, I'm looking at a big group of numbers, not small. When I ran these numbers for just the first 2 months of the year, we were down something like 55% in refinances year over year. Right, that's a pretty significant hit, and I would imagine that there are others in the industry who have a similar number to that. So we know that that's waning. Although you and I have talked relentlessly about cash out refi, cash out refi, cash out refi as the opportunity, and we've also talked about how if you've got a great database, you should still be doing 25-30% refinance in any market,
Correct.
Right? But if you're sitting there and you're looking at a lot of you probably made your goals based off of what your last 2 years looked like. And by the way, I'm not saying there was anything wrong with that, because I don't like going backwards either. Like, that's not in my vocabulary, right? That's not in my vocabulary. Moving forward is in my vocabulary. So to your point, John, I think right now Q1 is over. Don't worry about your year over year stats. Unless the one that you definitely want to check out is how are you doing on purchases year over year. If your pre-approvals year over year are down, and or your fundings for purchases year over year are down, you're losing market share somewhere. Okay?
Correct. One important highlight is to measure, every week the Mortgage Bankers Association, they announce on Wednesdays, right, where applications are nationwide. Again, it's a broad, bigger picture. So you can kind of get a glance at, I happened to pull up and looked, year over year, February, we were down 6% year over year nationwide in purchase applications, right? And due to a fact that we've got limited inventory. And it was a smoking hot market coming out of COVID last year, right?
Because we were up.
So I mean, again, and I think it's important not just to compare your numbers, but to look industry wide to measure that as well. And then refinance applications year over year, February, we're down about 56%. So
okay.
again,
we're right in line there.
We're right in line there. And again, to your point, cash out refinances, they're going to, if you have a database, there's plenty of people out there that are killing that opportunity right now, regardless of interest rates. I mean, it's definitely out there.
Yeah. So what you're suggesting, John, is, hey, we're at Q1 is over. We're looking forward. We're in like, hey, by the way, I'm going to use even numbers. Okay. So let's say that your goal was to do 40 million in 2022. I say easy numbers because that's 10 million a quarter.
Correct.
Right. But after Q1, you're only at 5 million, right? You've got some work to do.
Correct.
And that's okay. But you've got to take stock of where you are versus where your goals are at, because if you're off the pace, you have to change something about the way you're doing business right now. Like there's not going to be a miracle that just comes in and deals start, falling into place. So what we always talk about is everything is based off of the activities that you're doing. And my guess is a lot of us made business plans in 2021, but we weren't specific about what were the activities that we actually wanted to do. So we what we did was we put goals on paper. We didn't actually put the plan.
Yeah, put your number. Yeah.
We didn't actually put the
how
plan
are you going to hit that target, right?
To hit that target on paper. And so if you did, that's great. And if you did, what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at, did you measure those activities so that you can say, hey, I got a good return on those activities or not? Because if you had certain activities that were bringing you in business, maybe you just need to do more of that same activity.
You need to double it, yeah. It's funny because, talking to, you look back, I've been in the industry 25 plus years. Back then there were a lot less agents. The agents, the old adage was that if you had 10 producing realtors, right, you could make a pretty good living, right? Because they were sending you a deal a month, let's say, 2 or 3, pre-approvals and you were getting one closed every month, so that's 12 deals a year times 10 agents, that's 120 units. Yeah. Those days are gone.
Yeah.
So when you talk about, we still have, for those of us that have been in the business 10, 15, 20 years, we still might have that core 10, but we're not getting that many deals from them anymore. Yeah, I mean, we really aren't. I mean, I just talked to an agent in Fort Myers this morning, and, and we look at stats and we can look nationwide at LOs, I'm talking people closing 40, 50, 60 million. In many cases, they've only got 5 or 6 agents that send them multiple deals a year. So you might need to double, triple, quadruple down how many referral partners that you have, the number of agents. And I mean, I'll throw this out there that most of those folks that are closing 50 million probably have 80 one-offs.
Oh gosh, yes.
So they're getting 80 realtors to send them one deal, or maybe let's say 3 or 4, pre-quals a year. Every quarter they give them a pre-qual. Bryan, see what they can do. No good, but they get one across the finish line. So I think you got to really analyze how many agents do you need, right, to hit your goals.
And I'll tell you that, John, to that point, if you want to measure how you're doing on that, go pull a report in your LOS system or whatever. Hopefully you're tracking this, okay?
Please track it, by the way.
Of who you're doing business with. If you were to do a 6-month look back and look at every name of somebody who referred you a deal, if there's nobody new on that list,
it's not going to get any better.
You're right.
You've got to double the list, right?
So, I mean, if you closed
5 million,
if you're looking
and you want to close 10
the
next quarter, you've got to double that list.
Yeah, if you're looking for a way to measure your success at building new relationships and getting new referral partners, if you did a 6-month look back, by the way, don't even use closings, use pre-approvals. But if you did a 6-month look back and there's no new names on there, you ain't doing it. And nothing's going to change,
right?
In your business,
it's going to essentially stay the same, right?
Yeah. So I think the other flip side, we said pull out that business plan. Did you have specific activities that were going to help you grow your business? Hopefully, you tracked them so you know what's working for your business and what isn't. And the ones that are working, to your point, maybe double down. The ones that aren't, maybe you eliminate. Like, hey, let's where can I invest a quarter to make $1 instead of investing 75 cents to make $1? I would look at activities that way. But, the other thing you need to be looking at is like, do you have a set plan? So like I talked to you, John, before we got on this call, and I said, we were on a conference call together on Monday, and the question was asked, hey, what milestones in your business do you need to hit this week? And what I mean by that is like, I've been really preaching this lately, like let's quit trying to win the Super Bowl every week, and let's just focus on winning one game, right? And that one game is, what is your specific milestone?
TB12 style, we just need one score.
Okay. So out of like 7 people on that call, 2 people right away were able to answer, this is what I've got to accomplish this week. What that told me is the other 5 probably didn't have a plan. Right? Which means they're going into this week
reacting.
Which means they're probably not going to accomplish what they want.
Right.
I'm not saying they won't accomplish anything, but they're going to react to whatever the days bring them instead of being intentional about, this is what I need to do to get to where I want to go.
Right. So when we talk business planning, that means out there you've got a lead gen every day, right? I mean, certainly you've got to have a couple hours blocked off. Those are your must-dos, right? We've done this before. If it's Monday, you're going to call your top 20 agents, right? If it needs to be 40 agents, you got to find a way out, even if it's dividing that every other week. If it's Tuesday, call all your deals under contract, right? The listing agent and the selling agent and the title company and so forth. Wednesday, you've got to have another plan. What are you going to do Wednesday? Call your past client database. Call a couple letters each day so you touch them once a quarter. Thursday, what are you going to do on Thursday? You're going to call all your TBDs out shopping and looking, check in with them, see how they're doing. And Friday, maybe post a video that you're available over the weekend.
Yeah.
But I mean, every day in our business now, more importantly than ever, because it's so, it's so tight inventory, it's tough to get a contract accepted. You need to be doing those activities that are going to help you win and hit your goals.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting around middling with a file or just, processing a file and not really, at the water cooler talking about the fact that Tom Brady's back in Tampa.
Sure.
You're missing the opportunity to do that 2-hour activity that's going to generate more referrals.
Yeah. It makes me think of a saying that I heard that says all work fits into the time allowed. Okay. So I want you to think about it in an 8-hour day. If I just said all work fits into the time allowed, if you didn't go into that day with anything to do, you'll spend 8 hours
doing something,
right, but not
necessarily that's going to drive revenue.
So like you gave the example of you're fooling around with a file, right? You'll spend all day doing that because you feel busy,
right?
Yeah. And the reality is I think a lot of us, we go home at the end of the night and we're like, man, I was so busy today. I was whatever it is, and like. For me, I do the same thing sometimes. By the way, I got 3 fingers pointing back at me when I point one at you.
We all do it. I mean, it's easy to be reactive in the world.
I'll start to actually change the mindset of like, okay, Bryan, yes, you were busy all day, to Bryan, what did you do today that was revenue generating? And then and sometimes those are 10-hour days, not 8-hour days. And I'm going through like some of the calls I made or some of the things. And I'm like, you know what, dude, you just put in a 10-hour day that didn't make anybody any money.
Right.
And that's like, holy crap.
House on fire. It's a bad day. Right.
Holy crap. But my point was I felt like I killed it that day.
Right.
I felt like I was busy that day. But the reality is I didn't do anything that generated any revenue.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, it's easy in this business. You've got, pipeline you've got to look at, manage, fluster over, right? Gathering documents, doing things that you shouldn't be doing, and not doing the things to avoid the things that you must do's. People don't necessarily want to do some of those things. The important thing back is I think it's got to be written. It's got to be a written business plan. You've got to have days that you're going to do certain activities. Today I was talking to an LO that this morning early at about 7:45, and every week this day on Wednesday this LO goes to a pitch session.
Okay.
So that's what she does on Wednesday morning. I mean, you've got to have something every day that's going to help generate a referral.
Revenue, yep.
So if you don't,
And by the way, like, don't make this overwhelming. It doesn't have to be
3 or 4 things. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it doesn't even have to be 3 or 4. It could be 1. right? Like, I promise you right now, like if you're hearing what we're saying and you're laughing at me when I said I worked a 10-hour day and didn't do anything that generated revenue. By the way, I'm not the only one who's ever done that before. But if I change that behavior to just dedicating 1 hour to a revenue generating activity every single day, I've already moved the needle.
Yes.
Right. So like, don't get overwhelmed by like, oh, half of my day needs to be
a couple hours a day. That's
like
it.
just
2
find,
hours.
Find
2 hours.
one thing that's a revenue generating
prospect,
activity,
right.
and do it and do something every single day. And I promise you, it'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I think, John, we're at a point in our business right now too, with the market that we're in, where we thought we were working hard in 21 and 20.
It's a different hard. This is a different hard.
This is a different hard.
It's flipped over, and there's, like we talked about, there's a lot of loan originators that have never sold rates where we're at today. You talked about it. We talked this morning. We started this year off rates still, like I'll give like low threes, right? And then depending on the product type, LTV right now here, starting at, end of Q1, you might be up near 5.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty quick ramp up. And again, folks, that brings us back to October, the fall of 18. Mm-hmm. With interest rates, it's not the end of the world. People are still going to buy homes, but it adds a little stress.
Sure.
Right. If you're originating out there, I think people are a little uneasy. Sure. Even long-time originators feel like, wow, like, what is this going to do? How, and in reality, we know it doesn't really change a ton of buying power, mm-hmm. but it does take some people off the table, and it's a different market. So it's definitely you got to fight harder. You got to make sure you're doing the activities, and just to help you stay on track.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, switching gears a little bit. What do you think about arms?
Like these arms, the guns, you mean, or just the fact that arms are coming back into play? 5-1, 7-1, 10-1 arms. Yeah,
a 10-1 arm right now is a pretty good play in my opinion.
So we all, you and I at least have the same thought that we don't want to say the R word, but it's coming.
Yes.
Sorry out there if you're a listener, but that is coming, and just. The Fed just announced and put a little scare into us last week that there's probably not going to just be 3 rate hikes. They're probably going to be 7 this year.
Yep.
So we know the brakes are going to get put on, in the economy at some point, whether mm-hmm. it's 6, 12 months out, 18, 24 months. I can almost promise you, and I'm not going to promise anything, but rates will be back down at some point. So
100%.
If you are out there shopping for a home right now, and we've been so accustomed to, great 30-year fixed rates, 15-year fixed rates, check out some arms. I can promise you there are not prepayment penalties on these products if it's your primary residence. Mm-hmm. And, a year or two from now, you may be in a position to lock into a low rate.
Yeah, if you're an LO, heed the advice that John just gave you. Everybody that you're doing a loan for right now, you will refinance in the near future.
That's, to that point is make sure that every single week you are staying in touch with your past client database. Mm-hmm. And just, how you doing, the check-in calls, keep the relationship going.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have services like Sales Boomerang that have to tap you after somebody else called your client to try to refinance them. So be prepared for that. I'd even be setting that conversation up now. If you're doing an application for somebody today, that's your lead in. You're not just quoting 15, 30-year fixed rates. You're giving them enough information that they can make an educated decision whether or not an arm makes sense for them. But you're tipping them off that you do believe that rates are going to be at a point in a year or two that they can take advantage.
So what I'm hearing you say is, hey, if I went with let's say a 10-year arm right now, it's going to come with a pretty decent rate. And what you're saying is, hey, when rates come down, we'll refinance you into a fixed rate product. That could be at a similar rate as the 10-1 arm. Yeah, that's a smart play. So we kind of got off topic a little bit, but getting back on, I just want to say, if you're listening to John and I and you're not really sure what we're talking about in terms of tracking activities or taking a look back at your business, reach out to us.
Yeah.
This is what I do for a living, by the way. Is helping and supporting loan originators grow their business to whatever extent that they want to. And we're at a place in our business where we've been pivoting for some time, and I think there will be pivots that continue to come. Mm-hmm. And so we can't just put on blinders and go after this thing and think and hope everything is going to be okay. You need to be. I went to a conference one time where there was a panel of like 4 or 5 loan originators. This is a while back, so the number I'm going to give you. It was a lot back then. Today, I think there's LOs doing this, but these were LOs who had made over $1 million W-2 income.
Okay.
And the one guy, I'll never forget, he said, professionals track everything. You're a pro if you do and an amateur if you don't, right? And so then somebody asked, well, give us some examples of what you track. I track pre-approvals. I track the number of referrals I get from agents. I track conversion rate. Just went through a list of like 10, 15 things. Now, obviously that person's running a pretty big business. I can understand why they're tracking 10, 15 things, but just your average LO on the street, you need to be tracking pre-approvals. You need to be tracking where your referrals are coming from, and you need to be tracking your activities. The reason it's important to track your activities, and by the way, I'm talking about I made X amount of calls. I went to X amount of networking events. Right? The reason is that when you do the look back that John and I are talking about right now, you're going to know what activities were working for you and what weren't.
It's like dieting.
But in other words, how do you know that any of it's working? How do you know if any of it's working if you're not tracking anything?
Right.
So, hey, just kind of wrapping things up here, John. I had offered and said, hey, listen, this is what you and I do for a living, but we also have some tools and resources available to us. So we did a podcast back in December where we shared a success tracker that you and I use. If you need a copy of that, John and I would love to help you with that. The other thing you're probably sitting here thinking is, well, I don't know you're telling me to track activities. I don't know what activities to do. And here's the thing, John, you know this as well as I do. Some things work for some people and they don't for others. What we want to help you do is find out what activities work that's in your wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me give you an example. I'm not a cold call guy.
You're not going to call 30 agents you don't know on Monday?
Never, ever.
Okay.
Right?
Maybe a handwritten note guy?
I would do that.
Okay.
Right, but you're giving, this is perfect. Right? There are some things that some people feel comfortable with and is in their wheelhouse, meaning that I'm going to succeed at this at a high level because it feels comfortable to me. And there are some things that aren't, and that's okay. Right? There's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's a great point. There are a lot of coaches out there, that are throwing information out there, and some of it can be startling for people.
Yes.
If that's not in your wheelhouse and you don't like to cold call, there's different ways to skin the cat. So It's important that you do identify those things that are in your comfort zone.
Yep.
Maybe choose one thing, one activity that it's borderline that that you want to as a reach, but do the things that you can actually accomplish. Whether that's live events now that we're live again.
Yeah.
For sure. But if cold calling is not it for you, it's never going to be it.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, if you need some help, get with John and or I. Not only do we have a tool, but we'll give you like a menu of activities, and you might be like, not going to do that, never going to do that. But you might find something like,
3 or 4
boom,
for you.
I'll kill that one, I'll crush that one, I'll nail that one. Let us help you figure that out, right?
Absolutely.
So again, just kind of wrapping up. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Context to Contracts podcast. I am Bryan Lovell here with John Jones. If there's anything we can do to help you out, please know. Always here to serve.